is impromptu. I think must be easily forgotten. So please take the floor.
On the Promenade by Radu Pavel Kyo. He's walking with an open jacket. It's suffocatingly hot outside. There are women dressed in holiday clothes passing by him, although they're rather shabby from the periphery, probably. The women are treading carefully and cast their eyes down occasionally to avoid stepping in the puddles of blood on the ground. The man is avoiding them too. He's also avoiding the dead sprawled on the street's cobblestones. One of them is laying with its head on the sidewalk and its legs sprawled across the tram tracks. Someone should move it from there, even though the tram isn't running anymore. It looks despicable. And head to head with it, but sprawled in the opposite direction, another dead body is taking over the whole width of the sidewalk. Two women walking arm in arm step over it, careful not to soil their shoes. There are others as well. One collapsed right by the side of the sidewalk. It's obvious it was shot in the head. Another seems asleep by the front window of a cafe with a hat neatly placed by on the cobblestones. It has its back turned to Kuzavoda Street, and its clothes are bunched unnaturally around the body. There are several large green flies milling about on the back of its neck. This one got pushed from the road by someone, the man ponders, to avoid tripping on it. A gentleman with a cream-colored hat on his head and a closed umbrella in his hand, which he's carrying like a cane, passes thoughtfully by the dead body near the cafe and crosses paths with the man with the open jacket. Why would he need an umbrella, he thinks, although it can't hurt to be prudent. He thinks he might recognize the dead body turned with its back to the street and to the world, which seems to be sleeping off a final drunken night. Like this, from the back, it looks like Godel from down in the valley on Cuckoo Street. For a moment, he feels the urge to walk closer, to take a better look, but he doesn't. These people were asking for it. They did it themselves, as they say. This Godel was a fervent communist. I wouldn't be surprised if he'd been one of the ones shining their lanterns at night around Iași to show the Bolsheviks where to drop their bombs. Good riddance. It's a shame for his pop, old man Avram, because he's a good man. Rather cheap, like all kites. And if he'd lend you any money, then he'd be all over you like lice, day in, day out, anytime he saw you. When will you pay me back? What about my money? When will you bring me my money? I wonder whether they released him from the police headquarters. This morning, when they picked him up, Marcel was also there with the soldiers. I reckon he's the one who brought them. And he told me he headbutted the kike in the mouth so hard that gore shot out of his schnoz. He had a bone to pick with the old man Avram ever since last year. But you could kind of deal with him, the old man. Godel, though, he was a wretch.
I Didn't Do Anything by Alina Nelega. I had no idea why Poyu was doing in our class. Neither him nor the three little gypsies from the desks in the back, who only came to school occasionally. We stayed away from them, but they avoided us too, since they stuck together during breaks and they spoke broken Romanian. They played with marbles against the wall and wouldn't even hang out with the boys who used to kick the ball around in the yard behind the stone building which had once been a Protestant seminary. Poyu didn't approach them either, although the class tutor had sat him at a desk in the back of the class as well, because he was taller. She had said he was taller than everyone else. Maybe that's what set us off. That Poyu didn't fight back when we all mobbed him to tell us his real name. He just stood there, paralyzed, and they tore his canvas haversack from his back because he didn't even have a backpack like the rest of us, made of colored vinyl and covered in stickers. And they scattered his notebooks and books across the ground. They were looking for his student card. He didn't cry for help. It was only when I picked that old photo off the ground that had fallen from his Romanian textbook that he lunged at me with his fists up high. Maybe that's when Timmy hit him, because he had attacked me, and the others followed suit. I didn't do anything. I stood to one side with the photo in my hand, and I didn't understand what was in the photo, why he carried it around with him. What even was that piece of junk? There was nothing in it. It wasn't even a porn picture with women or other things that boys stashed in their notebooks sometimes. No, there was just a deserted street, some closed metal shutters with a company name that said Lipschitz Cheeses and Colonial Goods. Ah, so that was the right spelling of his name. And in the front, there were some burlap sacks filled with something. And in front of the sacks, in the middle of the street, there were two men lying down, head to foot, one with a stained shirt, and the other one lying there, straight as a board, with his head in the gutter, as if they were dead. But they couldn't be dead. What would Pollo be doing carrying photos of dead people around? Was he crazy or what? And over them, there were some black spots like coffee beans, maybe from those stuffed burlap sacks. I didn't understand a thing, not even why Pollo didn't hit back, didn't put up a fight. What's more, he started crying like a girl. And that's when the boys pulled back, stopped hitting him, didn't even look for his student card anymore. They just dusted themselves off and started randomly shoving his scattered books and notebooks back in. And about that old photo, what could we do about it? It was good for nothing. It was a stupid old photo, so he tore it up and threw it on the ground. And he lunged for those pieces that the wind had already begun scattering through the yard, and he picked them up as we were getting out of there, lickety-split, so that nobody would catch us. Although I didn't do anything. I didn't even beat him. And a few punches and shoves among boys didn't even count. They'd started fighting far more ferociously during football. Sometimes they'd even get nosebleeds, and they were covered in bruises the next day. But Pollo didn't have any bruises. He was fine. Why did he make such a racket? And why was he wailing in a weird language? Maybe he was trying to scare us. And he really did, because we all ran away from there and left him to look for the pieces of that stupid photo of his.
There's a twist to this story, but we won't reveal it, right? Because it's for the audience to find out about it. You have always been interested in history. History has always been a part of your literature as an important theme. You looked back to the history of Romania and wrote about characters somehow embedded, expressed some important historical moments. Tell us about the experience in joining this project, unusual project, revisiting the Iași Pogrom through fiction.
Indeed, my interest in writing both fiction and plays, because I'm a playwright. Yeah. Okay, I think I can speak without the microphone. Maybe you could hear me. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's better. Right. So one of my interests has always been, of course, history and minorities, any kind of minorities. Probably because I myself, I'm a woman, so I belong to a minority. And of course, power relationship, relationships and the way they can affect us, collective traumas, individual traumas, and so on. And the scapegoat theory, of course, this is a theory of a quite famous French anthropologist, René Girard, and it has a lot to do with the way tragedy was born. I'd say that different groups, different minorities during the world history have been scapegoats, and the Jews have this history from ancient times until today. So to come back to your question, I saw the exhibition that the people of the International Literature and Translation Festival of Iași organized 2 years ago at the Museum of Literature, and it was extremely disturbing. The original exhibition is a lot larger than what you see here, of course, and there are lots of photos and video clips and films that have been made.
We can't really hear, I'm sorry.
You can't hear.
I think you're better off without the microphone.
Okay, so I think you can hear me now. Okay, because yeah. The exhibition was really disturbing, and then I think less than a year after this exhibition was presented to the public, Florin Lazarescu, who is a wonderful writer and a very empathic person, came with this project. And he offered not only 10 photos, there were more than 10 photos, as a starting point for creating stories to these 10 writers that you see. I'm very honored that I'm one of them. And then lots of things, of images from that exhibition, from that came back to me. And
you could pick your own picture, right?
Yeah,
So you can choose your own picture too.
Yeah, sure. That was the idea, to choose a photo, to choose a picture, and to start from it, or to integrate it in a story that would carry some meaning, carry some, yeah.
Why were you attracted by this particular photo?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because the first sentence that came to my mind when I saw it was, "What a waste." It's not. There are other photos that are more cruel.
Yeah.
More cruel, more. But this one is almost tranquil. It's almost, nothing happens. Everything has already happened, and it was. I had this feeling of waste and of not really grasping what had happened. So, which I tried to discuss in this short story, where the character doesn't really understand the photo. Who is that boy who came, the new colleague,
No spoilers. You know,
yes, no spoilers. Yeah.
But did you research a lot while writing this piece, or you relied only on your writer skills?
I relied on my personal experience, and many of the things that are in that story is based on are real. They are also fictionalized, some of them. But this character, the boy Puiu, he existed. I met him. He was one of my colleagues. And the story is, well, a lot of it is real. Most of it is real, yes.
But not autobiographical.
But
or,
of course,
yes. Autobiographical.
Yes. I mean, I think writers should write about things that they know. I mean, you have to know your characters. You have to know and to have gone through some experiences that you are trying to describe.
And take us a bit through or in the writer's lab. You have the picture in front of your writing desk. You were watching this picture all the time. Take us through the process of writing this piece. Or you just saw it and then it, I don't know, it inspired. It took you back to your time, your some personal experience. How did it happen? What was the mechanics of inspiration in this case?
Interesting.
Oh.
It's really difficult to explain. It's a flux, of course, like any creative process. Writing is a flux. And when you find the right rhythm, then, I mean, I don't think, actually, I'm pretty sure that writers don't write with their heads. They write with their guts. Like actors, they don't play with their heads, they play with their guts, because if you play with their heads, then, and also it also happens with the writers, and I think with all kinds of artists. So I don't want to say the word inspiration, because I hate this word. But there is a trigger, or more triggers, that I think make you I don't know, able or fit to express something that you think it's important to say, to be heard. And I know this my story is, my short story is quite different from the others in the volume, because the perspective that I chose is the perspective of the majority. So it's not the perspective of the Jews who were slaughtered, but it is the perspective of my main character. The discourse is the perspective of the majority, and I think this is what is important, that the majority acknowledges and speaks about these things as they were. I mean, historical, can we say truth? I don't know how many things is the truth as, but
Thank you, Alina. I'm really sorry we cannot talk more about what happens in the story, because I want the audience to discover it, because it's a very, I mean, even though it has only a couple of pages, right, it's so well crafted. It takes you to, to many periods in time, it's very, and at the end, with the resolution develops everything that happened before, and you're like, oh my God, now I understand what was happening, what was with this beating, who are these characters, what about this title? I didn't do anything. And it reveals at the end. But speaking about truth, and you are an expert in truth, despite the some assertion, and I like to apologize. Some people become very emotional during our events. You know, they are so impressed and pressured by what's happening, so they couldn't contain themselves. I hope you're not offended.
I hope so.
The apologize will come at the end of the gentleman, I'm sure. This is a very original project. It's quite unique in Romanian literature. It's quite unique, I think, everywhere in the world. What is the story of this project? The idea to invite these writers, the idea to transform a historical event into fiction, or to visit the event and reveal some of the maybe hidden aspects of fiction.
Yes, this project was part of...
Can't hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
It's a big city, a very noisy city. People here speak, you know, they want to make themselves heard.
Okay.
It's New York City.
Pretend it's a city. Okay. Okay. As a part of an editorial project for the most important literary festival in Romania, Philip, the 2022 edition. The artistic director of the festival, the writer Florin Lăzărescu, who is also the coordinator of the Literary Museum's press, invited 10 Romanian authors to write a story inspired by a photo taken during the Iași Pogrom of 1941. Of course, they chose the photo. They had, as Alina said, more photos at their disposal, but they choose one.
How did they pick the writers? You know, randomly, or they invited more and only 10 answered? How did it happen?
It's not politically correct to say to answer this question. It's
history will tell.
Yes, yes.
But I want to underline that it's our first-rate authors, you know, with amazing careers in Romanian literature and even abroad, translated abroad. And,
yes, they all are translated. One of them is a historian, Adrian Cioreanu, and he is also a good writer.
And a former minister.
Yes, a
my former boss.
Member of the government.
That's why I didn't include him, you know, and he's no longer my boss, so I wouldn't care.
Yeah, maybe we should read the 10 writers for the public. So, Adrian Cioreanu, Bogdan Coșa, Radu Pavel-Gheu, Florin Iulian, Marin Mălaicu Condrar, Cătălin Niculea, Alina Nelega, Cristian Teodorescu, Tatiana Țâbuleac și Miruna Vlada. Sunt cei 10.
We should have asked you to read the names. You know, like in the theater school, you know, before exercising elocution or whatever.
Thank you,
So the resulting volume here highlights the literary prospect of photos taken during the Iași Pogrom, pointing out the, let's say, the emotions which they invoke for the readers nowadays. This was the
people who don't read history, are not necessarily scholars, so that they get a perspective. It's a fantastic introduction to a historical moment for people who are not necessarily, I don't know,
yes,
readers
and
of history.
I think the intention was to preserve memory, not to let things be forgotten, and just to shed some light on some events that maybe some people are inclined to deny, and to keep them alive in our memory. There is no guarantee that these things won't happen, but at least we haven't forgotten about them. And I think this is one of the missions of the artists and of the writers, to safeguard our memory. And history is part of our memory.
What was the reception of this book in Romania? What readers said about this book?
Well, it was a book launch at the 2022 edition of Filit. I mentioned
It's a big festival in Romania, literature festival, international in nature.
Yes. It's one of the most important literary festivals in southern.
In the region.
In the region. Yes, yeah, exactly. And it was very well received. And the next year, last year actually, in 2023, the volume was translated into English by Mircea Laszlo, and now we can present here in New York, and this is very important because, as Alina said, this book, this volume, has also an educational value. Yes, because people, don't read history, and they are ignorant sometimes. But maybe they can read words, literature. Yeah, and this may have an important role. Yes, impact to readers.
I think especially for young readers, for kids, it's a fantastic getaway into a problem that is so complicated, so difficult, but so important at the same time.
Exactly. We at the museum in Iași, we have an educational museum department, and we use this book and these stories with young students, scholars from gymnasium, especially.
Mr. Director, merci. The gentleman is reading continuously. Merci. Too much. Too long.
Go on. If you are bored, you can leave.